All right. So let me talk before we go on to the actual agenda. Let me talk a little bit about my philosophy or my position on salary increases. Hmm. I think there could be an analogy here to just because you participate in an event in a sport doesn't mean you should get a trophy. So that equates to just because you show up for work doesn't mean you should get a pay increase. So presence,
Above.
well, that's coming up. So presence, performance. So what do you get for presence? For coming to work every day in Chris Lukasevich's perfect uh, employer world, you get a cost of living adjustment. I think every year we should do our best to ensure our salaries are not eroding. All right. So
I
this,
agree with that.
right? So again, that's across the board. As long as the budget supports it, it's not being an overburden on the taxpayer, right? You pay that cost of living. This year, what is the cost of living based on the CPI-U? So the CPI-U, right, is the inflation rate, but that's based on urban, right? The Philadelphia Camden region that we're in. Now, there is also the CPI-W, which is based upon what's specific cities, right? But we fall under region. That's the most accurate one. Again, we don't want to be looking at Philly, Pittsburgh, New York, or a specific city, excuse me. We want to be covered under region. That's the most accurate. The current year, it's 0.4%, so less than 0.5%. So would it be fair to give county employees at least 0.5%? Absolutely. Now, you could say you want to go the 12 months because only 10 months have been reported so far for the CPI-U, right? And that's the Consumer Price Index. Now, for the 12 months, so if we look 12 months back, so that would be November, December of 2019, plus up through October of 2020, it's 0.8. So just 1%. So you can decide.
You can say one.
You can say one, and one
it.
is a lot easier to change all those tables because right now they're all set at 3%, right? So if you want to make that Excel formula a little bit easier, and actually it's really not because it's an Excel formula. Instead of putting 0.4 in there, you put one. But again, one keeps it nice and clean. Round it up to one, everyone across the board.
You're actually getting a little bit more.
You're actually getting a little bit more than inflation. Now, the challenge is, how do you figure out performance? How do you provide merit increases? And that's a problem that has to be worked out. Well, that's the second part.
You said
for everyone across the board.
Yeah, you agree with everyone across the board getting
cost of living to match the CPI-U, correct. So those who go and be above and beyond, so they're in that excellent or very excellent evaluation category, right? They should get recognized for that performance.
If they're working harder and they're busting
their butt, more creative with initiative, getting things done above and beyond simply showing up. And just like in any organization, any business, some people just show up. Right? But we want to be ensuring we're providing merit increases. So we're keeping the best, the brightest, the most creative, the hardest working. And again, there's not an easy formula for that. And there are pros and cons to merit-based pay raises. But again, I believe the county needs to get there.
What that does in a way too is if someone sees in an office that one person got a higher raise because they were really working hard, that's either going to make everyone else work harder,
right,
or they're going to make that person's life miserable.
Sorry, right.
Just kidding.
But no, again, it's the same effect as certain people may decide, well, we're all getting 3%. Well, why should I work any harder than the slacker?
Right.
Right. Now, it may be something personal, which I would like to think, like you strive for excellent regardless of what others say or do. But nonetheless,
it depends on where you've worked in your work history, as far as like the work ethic.
Right,
You
work
know,
ethic
if
is
you're
extreme.
around people who are, hard chargers who work hard, no matter whatever pay they get, then that's going to be your work ethic.
Right,
You're gonna always give it your 100%, or
right,
110.
right,
But
right.
you're right. Is if everyone's getting a raise, the same raise, then what's to motivate you to continue to be a hard charger?
Right. And so what's going to happen tomorrow? The salary board, the motions are going to include a 3% pay raise. And you know where Chris Lukasevich will be voting on that 3% across the board. I'll be voting no. And I will clarify that with my philosophy about the CPI-U should be used for inflation-based cost of living adjustments. And beyond that, it should be merit-based. Now, the argument's going to be, but we're giving the union all these 3% raises, so we have to give it to everyone else. Well, I'm ready to break that vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
You gotta stick the stick in the spoke of the tire of that bicycle at some point. And I'm willing to stand up and do that. I'll take the heat for it. That's fine, because I have to represent the 64,000 people that aren't county employees, who, in addition to the county employees, have to pay that tax bill. What's fair is fair. So again, cost of living adjustment, and then we need to work towards that metric, figuring out how we're going to do merit-based in the future.
As a taxpayer, I would prefer, if there is going to be a raise, to be going to someone who's working hard, or doing their job as hard as they can, and not going towards someone who's just warming a seat.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
that
will
would
tell
drive me
you,
crazy.
even at will positions in the county, it's extremely, extremely, extremely hard to get rid of someone. Extremely hard. And a lot of it has to do with liability and legal issues. And
people
multiple
who know
examples
that can
of
just sit there and
that's right.
do the bare minimum, if that even.
Right. So I will keep in mind, Social Security increase this year was only 1.3. So we're giving Social Security recipients, the majority of them, senior citizens, 1.3. We're going to give county employees 3%. I don't know about that, right? Federal civilians getting 1% pay raise. County employees, they're getting 3%. Matter of fact, I think we're even getting state employees might be the exception to that. And we know they're overpaid for sure. Matter of fact, I think they get paid, their pay increases come twice a year is the way they do it for state. I was looking at that. So again, I'll be voting no across the board on non-union pay raises, right? Keep in mind, each 1% is $75,000.
It seems like a lot.
It is, but then I will eventually, with a caveat, vote yes to the union raises. Well, why is that, Chris? You're against 3% across the board seniority longevity, because the previous board made a contractual obligation that I feel I have to stand behind. Now, I will caveat my vote about breaking that vicious cycle and taking a hard line in future negotiations when it comes to economic terms.
Which is coming up in December.
Well, no, actually, for one AFSCME union, it'll be taking place this coming month. And then you have 3 more that will be starting later in the year for contracts that expire. Again, it's not undervaluing what union members do. It's valuing those highest performers. And again,
and it's looking out for the taxpayers,
which is ultimately my greatest responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Those 64,000 residents who are not county employees, because I answer to them also.
You know what this reminds me of? Like how everyone has that beef with Congress votes for their own pay raises, and there's no one to stop them from saying, there's no one to stop them saying, wait a minute, you already get paid so much, and you don't really do anything for it. Half the people don't show up to the votes and stuff like that, but there's no one to say you can't do that. They just voted in and they get it. And so it's like, this is what the feeling that I'm getting. It's like, it's like The county is making decisions on doing pay raises that are good, like, it's like, and there's no one like the taxpayers are sitting here going, hey, wait, no, don't do that. Cause we're like having to pay all these taxes. And they're like, yeah, let's get 3%.
Well,
Let's get 3%.
Well, no, see what happens is, and again, county government fears transparency. And this is what this is about. I'm trying to help educate you. Again, this is a learning process for me. It's a learning process for you. I want you to be more informed citizens. I want you to be voicing your concerns, because what I'm going to hear is, you know what, on Tuesday's Times News, Tuesday's social media, there's going to be there'll be few people who are complaining about certain county employees got a 3% pay raise and I'm not getting any. Well, you know what? Your voice doesn't do any good after the fact. Your voice only has the possibility to influence my colleagues before the fact, So if it's not this year, then next year. But guess what? Every year you wait, that costs us another $280,000, which is getting compounded by another 3% every year. They did a 3% last year. They're going to do a 3% again this year. And you know what? There are some people who are fully deserving of that.
Yeah.
But again, there's no way to measure that right now, because this is all about longevity. It's not about cost of living or inflation. It's not about performance. It's simply about presence. And I don't support that. So did you want to comment? Hey, first, let me say though, 570-503-6780. You can call, because we're going to jump into the agenda now. This is going to be a long one. We got someone in the waiting room, I know, coming on here in a few minutes.
Yep.
And we'll be jumping to that row officer. Or you can go ahead and put it in the chat room right there on the C4 Facebook page.
What I was going to say was, because you keep alluding to this, but you never come out and say it, is,
okay.
how do you determine who should deserve to get higher than a 1%?
That's right. Well, there's an evaluation system in the county, right? So again, you can set aside X amount of dollars for merit-based pay increases based upon the evaluation system. And I know from my own experience in the Army, there are ways to prevent inflation of evaluations, right? I will tell you, in the Army, to get what we call a top block, you could not go over, I could not as a commander, top block more than 49.9% of my individuals. If it did, that individual was actually penalized. And so was I as a commander would be also. But that individual, instead of a top block, he would get what we call center of mass. So there are built-in controls to ensure that merit is truly accurately based upon performance, and then inflation, the chance of it is mitigated.
Right.
But
I was going to say, that was one of the things in the military, that you were always gunning for that top block. You wanted that, because that meant that you were, going above and beyond. And center mass is kind of like, and even though you say center mass, that's where the majority of the people are. If you got a center mass, you're like, man, and it wasn't even a good thing. It was like, even though it's saying you're average, it was a bad thing.
Right.
And anything below center, forget about
now,
it.
I will tell you, the evaluation system in the county is broken, as broken can be. And again, I put out in a couple weeks, the last Thursday in January, I will be doing my self-evaluation and assessment right here on Carbon Matters.
There's a comment by Kayla. Hi, Kayla. There are row officers who agree with merit-based. It would need to be uniform, if you will, so that we are all evaluating against the same standards, so that rating is less objective. We do utilize employee evaluations, but they are not utilized by the county as they should be. It's an incentive and hold employees accountable.
No, absolutely, Kayla.
Holds employees accountable.
And part of the problem, Kayla, is, remember, the commissioner's policies are truly only enforceable by the commissioners for those departments that fall directly under them. You keep seeing Carbon for Home rule behind me. The only way we can get across the board evaluations, uniform policies, and enforceable is by home rule. It doesn't allow it. As a row officer, you know, right? Hire, fire, supervise. You can do those evaluations or you can't. But let me tell you what's going to happen in January. What will be for next year's budget, 2022. Last January, January 6th of last year, the commissioners stated that beginning in fiscal year 22, all requests for salary increase will be accompanied by the most recent evaluation. I will also tell you, any request for a pay increase that goes up for a vote and does not come with an evaluation, that has one no vote. That's Chris Lukasevich. I said it before, I'll say it again. In 2022, if there's a request for a pay increase beyond the consumer price index urban, and it doesn't have an evaluation, that's one no vote. Again, I'm only one of 4 or one of 5, but again, that's one no vote. I'll stick to the principle, stick to the philosophy. And those of you who are out there doing your evaluations, evaluating your employees fairly, hats off to you. I appreciate it. It's tough to hold the standard, but please do it, because I know we can institute change, positive change. If we stick together, we can have a better county employees, and we can ensure that we're putting the money into those employees who truly deserve it and are making a difference.
And I'll go back to a point that you made earlier about how hard it is to get rid of some people. And I will say this, that the military used this system, evaluation system, as a way to establish history of showing that a person was continually not conducting, going up to conduct and to the standards.
Standard.
And if you could show that someone wasn't performing up to standards, then you could have an argument for them being separated from the military.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the only way that you can actually get rid of some of these, dead weight people that are in your office that won't do their work, much less the minimum.
Right.
And so if you do an evaluation and you're honest about it, you're not just giving everyone, oh, you're wonderful, you're such a great employee, thank you so much. No, you tell them you have not performed to standard. This is the standard. You have to do at least this, and if you don't have those kind of things, then so anyways, that's a good way.